So you want to get a drone and you're wondering which one is the best, what's the best value for the price, how fancy of a drone do I actually need, what features are important, which ones aren't. It's all pretty confusing. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what features you should look for, what drones can produce cinematic footage like what you're seeing right now, and what drone you should get, whether you just want a basic drone to fly for fun or want to shoot professional drone video. And as you can see, I've got a bunch of drones here in front of me. And as we go through this, just remember that you can get great shots with any of these drones. The footage you're looking at right now was shot on the Phantom 3, which is 10 years old. So with the right skills, any of the more recent drones can produce cinematic results. It's just easier with some drones than with others. So first of all, a couple general things to keep in mind when you're buying a drone. Overall, there are two types of drones: camera drones, which is what most of these are, and FPV drones. Camera drones are very stable. They're fully GPS stabilized. They have a 3-axis gimbal to stabilize the footage. They're controlled with a handheld remote controller with a screen, and therefore shooting typical drone footage like what you're watching right now. FPV drones, on the other hand, you see the camera feed in a pair of goggles like this. They're not GPS stabilized and you have full manual control over them. They're a lot harder to fly and the camera's not stabilized. FPV drones are for getting those cool shots, diving down mountains, flying through tight gaps, chasing cars, all that kind of stuff. Most FPV drones are either DIY or pre-built carbon fiber frames like this that you can actually replace parts on. They're not integrated units like regular camera drones. Now there are some drones like the Avata 2 that are kind of a hybrid between FPV drones and regular camera drones. They do have GPS. You can fly them manually, but you don't have to fly them manually, although you are somewhat limited as to what you can do with the GPS stabilization features turned on. Now in this video, I'm mainly going to cover camera drones. FPV drones are kind of a whole separate topic, but at the end I will talk about the Avata 2 and Neo 2, which are great hybrid drones that are an easy way to get into FPV if that's what you're interested in. Now between all of these different drones that I have spread out here, the main differences are in camera quality and features. They all work basically the same. An expensive pro drone is just as easy to fly as a beginner drone. It just has a better camera and more features. And with drones, there is a certain price point below which the quality is just going to be terrible. I got this $139 drone off of Amazon. Actually, a company sent it to me, and it is just awful. The camera quality is basically unusable, and it was flying around in circles trying to run into me when I tried to land it. Not very good flight performance, not very good camera, just not really worth the money. About the cheapest drone that will work decently well is the DJI Neo 2, which costs $229 for the basic kit without a dedicated remote, and more on this drone later. Also, keep in mind that with any of these drones, you won't be getting as amazing shots as you see in drone companies' promos like DJI's launch videos if you don't know how to use them properly. So to fix that, I have a completely free 45-minute training that shows you how to get the best results with your drone. And link to that is down in the description. And you'll notice that most of the drones I have here and most of the drones I'm talking about in this video are DJI drones. There are one or two other brands out there, like for example Hover Air, that make quite good drones, and I'll mention some of them later in this video. But all in all, DJI drones are by far the most reliable, the best value for the money, the best quality, and have the best features. Right now, there's really not a lot of serious competition to DJI, at least for the most part, although right now in the US, DJI drones are quite hard to get a hold of. So I'm going to just quickly go through the current DJI drone lineup and some alternatives so that you have an idea of what we're talking about, and then we'll dive into what features to look for in a drone, in the camera, and general features. And then at the end, I'll give you my specific recommendations for each price range. So cheapest to most expensive, prices are for the cheapest kit, although for any drone, I'd recommend getting the Fly More combo, which includes 3 batteries so that you can fly longer, because you'll very quickly find yourself wanting more flight time if you just have 1 battery. So starting on the cheap end, the DJI Neo 2 comes in at $229 for the cheapest kit. This kit comes without a remote, and you don't need a remote to fly it. You can just launch it off of the palm of your hand and it will follow you around and film you, and has some pre-programmed quick shots like Orbit or Droney. And you can also connect it to your phone and fly a relatively short distance away, and you can get a regular drone remote to fly it with in the higher bundles, but that is obviously going to cost cost more. Then going up from there, there's the Mini 4K at $299 for the cheapest kit. This is what I'd consider the cheapest regular drone with a remote that's pretty decent quality. And a non-DJI alternative is the Potensic Atom 2, which comes in around the same price and has pretty comparable features. Then moving up from there, there's the DJI Flip, which comes in at $439. This is going to be quite a leap in video quality from the previous drones. It comes with a remote, and you can also fly it without a remote as a follow me drone, and it has incredible image quality for the price. In fact, I'd consider it the cheapest drone that can get good quality video. And then moving up from there, we have the Mini 5 Pro, which comes in at $769. This is the latest, highest end drone around the 250 gram mark. It has absolutely amazing image quality, and all in all is just a fantastic little drone. Then moving up from there, we have the Air 3S around $1,099 for the cheapest kit. It has two cameras, a main wide angle camera, actually the same camera is on the Mini 5 Pro, as well as a 3x telecamera. And this is one of my all-time favorite drones and one of the best value for the money. And then moving on up from there, we have the Mavic 4 Pro at around $2,100 for the base kit. This is an absolutely top of the line drone, has three cameras, a wide angle camera and 2.5x and 6x telephoto cameras, and the best photo and video quality that you can get in this size and price range of a drone. And then all the way up on the super high end, there's the Inspire 3 at $16,499, closer to $20K by the time you get a full kit. These are the drones that they use to shoot high-end commercials, even movies with. And to be honest, if you're watching this video trying to figure out which drone to get, they're probably way out of both your price range and your skill range. So now let's talk about what features matter when choosing between drones. First up is video resolution. 4K is basically the minimum resolution for professional results, and all the drones I mentioned here shoot in 4K. Now, not all 4K video is created equal, so that's why some of the other things that we'll talk about in a minute matter a lot. And some drones, like for example, the Mavic 4 Pro, shoot in higher resolutions like 6K, which is nice, but it's not essential for most uses. Next up is frame rate. This is basically how many individual frames per second make up the video. 30 frames per second is fine for most drone shots. 60 frames per second is a nice option to have. It can let you slow down footage to half speed and can be great if you want to slow down some kind of action that you're filming. And some drones have 4K 100 or 120 frames per second, which is great for slowing down really fast action like wildlife, sports, etc. It's absolutely not essential, and I use it pretty rarely, but it is a nice feature to have. And some drones have full HD slow motion at 120 or 200 or 240 frames per second, but that is usually too bad of a quality that I would really consider it useful. And the next thing that's important to pay attention to is image sensor size. This is one of the biggest factors in the quality of the drone's camera. In general, the bigger the image sensor, the better the quality. On the lowest end, you have drones like this Potensic Atom 2 with a 1/2.3 inch sensor, all the way on up to something like the Mavic 4 Pro that has a 4/3 inch sensor, which as you can see is much larger. With the bigger image sensor, you get more detail, less noise and graininess in your shot, better low light performance, and overall better image quality, as well as usually better dynamic range, which is how bright and dark parts of the image you can see at the same time. Next is telephoto cameras. Up until a couple years ago, pretty much all drones had one wide-angle camera. But now several drones like the Air 3S or the Mavic 4 Pro have telecameras, which let you get closer to what you're filming. I absolutely love telephoto cameras because they let you get a totally different perspective than the traditional wide drone shot. In general, around 3x telecameras are the most useful, but some drones like the Mavic 4 Pro also have a 6 or 7x telephoto camera, which usually isn't quite as good quality, but lets you really zoom way into the shot. Next is color profile. This is something that's going to make the most difference for more advanced cinematic video rather than just flying your drone around for fun. All drones have a normal color profile, which has contrast and saturation added to the footage to make it look nice, but then there's also D-Log and D-Log M color profiles, which don't have as much contrast and saturation, which you then have to add in post, but that gives you a lot more color grading flexibility to edit the colors in your shot, and it also keeps more dynamic range, difference between the highlights and the shadows. And then there's also HLG or hybrid log gamma color profile, which is somewhere in between those two. The cheapest drones only have normal normal color profile, whereas better drones have D-Log and hybrid log gamma. Next, we have photo resolution. Most drones are going to have 12 megapixel photos, but some with a bigger sensor like the Mavic 4 Pro have 20 megapixel photos. Now, a lot of these drones will inflate the number of megapixels by basically taking and splitting up pixels on the sensor. So a drone with what would usually be a 12 megapixel sensor will also have a 48 megapixel mode. But those higher resolution numbers don't really mean a whole lot. It's usually not that much better quality than the regular, say, 12 megapixel mode, and even when you do gain some details, it often comes at a cost of dynamic range or noise. Next up is vertical shooting. Some drones, like for example the Mini 5 Pro here, will let you flip the gimbal to vertical to shoot vertical photos and videos with the full area of the sensor, whereas other drones don't let you do that and just take a vertical crop out of the full height of the sensor. So if you want to shoot a lot of vertical content, for example, to put on social media, you'll want to make sure that you get a drone that can flip the camera to vertical. Now, we've talked about a lot of camera features, but obviously there's other important things besides just the camera. The first of these is battery life. How long will the drone fly for on one battery? Most of these drones will have at least around 30 minutes of flight time, but some have all the way up to 50 minutes of flight time per charge. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you literally never get the stated battery life on a drone because it's measured in some kind of a controlled environment that does not exist in the real world, but generally the longer it's rated for, the better. The next thing that's important to pay attention to is weight. Drones that are under 249 grams have a lot less regulation in many countries. For example, the Mini series and the Neo series are sub 250 gram drones. Most of these others are over 250 grams, and once you get over that, weight isn't going to be as huge of an issue. The other thing to keep in mind is that smaller, lighter drones are much easier to fold up and throw in a bag to travel or hike with. And next we have tracking. Most of these drones have something called active track that will automatically lock onto a subject, a person, a car, a boat, a bike, and automatically track it, follow it around. And they also have something called spotlight mode, which will lock the camera onto anything that you select on the screen of the remote, and then keep the camera pointed at that subject as you fly the drone around. And there's also modes where you can have the drone automatically orbit around you. All of these modes are super useful to make it easier to get more advanced cinematic shots as a beginner with a lot less experience. Most DJI drones, as well as most drones from other brands, have these features in some shape or form, except for some of the cheaper ones, like for example the Mini 4K, that lacks tracking entirely. The next feature to pay attention to is obstacle avoidance. This basically uses sensors on the drone to not run into obstacles while you're flying. Again, cheaper drones like the Mini 3 or Mini 4K or Potensic Atom 2 don't have any obstacle avoidance sensors. Some drones only have forward and backward obstacle avoidance, but most new higher end drones like the Mini 5 Pro, Air 3S, or Mavic 4 Pro have 360-degree obstacle avoidance. Now, one thing that's important to note is that obstacle avoidance is not perfect. You can't trust it to keep you from crashing 100% of the time. But it's definitely saved me from crashing quite a number of times, and as a beginner it will save you from crashing even more. The next important feature is speed. In general, bigger drones are going to be able to fly faster. The Mavic 4 Pro can fly up to 60 miles an hour, while the Mini 4 Pro can only fly up to 40 miles an hour. In general, I just like fast drones. If your drone can fly faster, you can get more speedy dynamic shots. You can also get to where you want to go with the drone faster, and you can track cars faster as well. And a drone that can fly faster and is bigger will also have better wind resistance. The next super important feature is control range, or how far away you can fly your drone before you lose connection to the remote. Now, the range on all current DJI drones is plenty. Usually you're going to be well out of line of sight to your drone before you have any range issues. But in places with a lot of radio frequency interference, like for example in a city, the stronger your control and video link is, the better. And just in general, if you have a better transmission system, the feed is less likely to cut out and cause you to crash your drone. All recent DJI drones have the O4 video transmission system, which is amazing and will let you fly your drone basically as far as you need to. Another thing that's important to think about is how loud your drone is. A smaller drone, like for example the Mini series, is usually going to be quieter than a bigger drone like a Mavic. The one exception to this though is that some drones that are relatively small, like the Neo or the Avata 2, are really loud and annoying because they have small props that have to spin at an extremely high speed, and so they make a lot of noise. Something else to consider is what type of remote you want to use to fly your drone. For DJI drones, there are two main options, and you're going to have similar options from most other companies. There's the DJI RC2 that has a built-in screen, and then there's the RCN2 or RCN3 where you have to attach your phone to use it as a screen. I much prefer RC2 remotes with the built-in screen because it's so much less of a hassle to not have to connect your phone to the remote each time you want to fly. With a dedicated remote, you also don't have to worry about your phone being charged, about getting a call or a text while you're flying. All of that is completely separate from your drone piloting experience. And these RC2 remotes are available with most DJI drones in one of the kit, and I highly recommend them. So now that we've covered all of the different features, what they mean, and what you need to know about them, I'm finally ready to give you my recommendations for what drone you should get. Now, one little note before I give you my recommendations, there are basically two kinds of people who want to get drones. First, there's people who just want to get a drone, want to have fun with it, fly it around, but they aren't really planning to do serious videography or photography with it or use it professionally. And then there are others who are getting a drone for shooting video or photos, to make drone videos or to use drone shots in other videos that they're making, or even want to be able to offer drone services professionally. Now, if you're one of those who just want to have fun with a drone and fly it around and aren't interested in shooting video with the drones, most of the differences in camera specs and quality won't be super relevant to you because all these drones have pretty decent cameras. So with that said, if you're a complete beginner who just wants to dip their toes into drones, not sure if you want to get a higher end drone or don't want to spend too much, your best options are going to be the Neo 2 at $239, the Mini 4K at $299, the Mini 3 at $419, and the Flip at $439. All of these drones are under 249 grams, all shoot 4K video, but they have a little bit different uses. The Neo 2 is great if you want a purpose-built follow-me drone that you can also fly with a remote, whereas the Mini 4K and Mini 3 are designed for a more traditional, remote-focused drone flying experience, and the Flip is somewhere in between since it comes with a remote in the basic package, but it will also let you fly it without a remote. And if you care about video quality out of all of these budget tier drones, the Flip is going to give you by far the best video quality. It shoots 4K at up to 60 frames per second in 10-bit D-Log-M, as well as shooting 4K 100 frames per second slow motion, and it uses basically the same sensor as the Mini 4 Pro. The one edge that the Mini 3 has is that it lets you flip the camera to vertical to shoot vertical videos for social media. And the Neo 2 is rated at 19 minutes flight time, the Flip at 31 minutes, the Mini 4K also at 31 minutes, and the Mini 3 at 38 minutes of flight time. Plus you can get bigger batteries for the Mini 3, which will bump the flight time up to 51 minutes, although that will put the drone over 249 grams. Both the Neo 2 and the Flip are built around tracking, and both have obstacle avoidance. The Neo 2 has 360-degree obstacle avoidance, and the Flip only has forward-facing obstacle avoidance, whereas neither the Mini 4K or the Mini 3 have any obstacle avoidance or tracking features at all, which are some pretty major limitations. So if you're looking for a solid beginner drone under 500 and aren't looking for the best video quality out there, any of these drones could be good, but the Neo 2 would actually be my top budget pick because it's really cheap, super easy to start flying as an automated follow-me drone even without a remote, and also works surprisingly well with a remote. Or if you want the very best video quality in this price range, the Flip is going to win by a long shot, although it does cost somewhat more than the Neo 2. Or if you want something with better vertical video and an entirely remote focused experience, the Mini 3 could be a good option as well. And if you're looking for an alternative to DJI, there's the Potensic Atom 2, which I've actually reviewed here on the channel, and it falls somewhere between the Mini 4K and Mini 3, but it also has tracking features which they don't. Another option option is the Skyrover S1, which I haven't tested out, but does look pretty promising. And then moving on up the lineup, there's the Mini 4 Pro at $759 and the Mini 5 Pro at $769. These are the cheapest drones that I'd recommend for shooting what could be called professional quality video, and the best drones under 250 grams, or at least kind of under 250 grams. The only reason I'm even including the older Mini 4 Pro in this comparison is because the Mini 5 Pro is actually slightly over 250 grams. Mine weighed in at 251 grams. Now, if this even matters depends on where you live. In Europe, the Mini 5 Pro still falls under the C0 sub 250 gram rules, even though it weighs slightly over. And in the US, the main difference with it being over 250 grams is that you'll need to pay $5 to register your drone if it's over 250 grams. But in some countries, being under 250 grams can make a significant difference in the rules for flying. So in those countries, you might want to consider the Mini 4 Pro instead of the Mini 5 Pro, especially since it's still a super solid drone that can get some great video. But with that note, looking at the Mini 5 Pro, it has a 1-inch image sensor, which is much larger than the image sensors of the Neo 2, Mini 4K, and Mini 3, and gives you much better image quality. Like the other drones, it also maxes out at 4K resolution, but that 4K resolution footage is going to be much better quality than cheaper drones with smaller sensors. It can shoot 4K up to 60 frames per second in normal mode and has a 4K 120 frames per second slow motion mode as well. Plus, it has D-Log-M and hybrid log gamma color profiles, which are really important for creating the best quality videos and are lacking on all of the cheaper drones except for the DJI Flip. And it also has all the features and bells and whistles that the cheaper drones don't have. It has 360 obstacle avoidance, active track, spotlight, point of interest, waypoints. It has double the control range of the Mini 3. The battery life is about the same as the Mini 3, and like the Mini 3, it lets you flip the camera to vertical for vertical social media videos. So the Mini 5 Pro is what I'd recommend if you want to shoot high quality video and photos and want to start with a sub 250 gram-ish drone, either for regulation's sake or for being easier to carry if you're hiking and traveling a lot with it. And it's also what I'd recommend if you want to shoot a lot of vertical video or photos for social media. And the Mini 5 Pro is fully capable of doing professional work, shooting video clips to go in most types of videos, shooting real estate, etc., etc. I would not feel at all bad to show up to a paid shoot with this drone and be confident that I could create professional results with it. And if you're looking for an alternative to DJI in this range, there's the Skyrover X1, which is basically a non-DJI replica of the Mini 4 Pro, so the quality isn't quite as good as the Mini 5 Pro, but still an extremely solid drone. And then moving up a little bit more, there's the Air 3S, which comes in at $1,099 for the basic kit. The Air 3S is quite a bit bigger than all the previous drones that we've talked about. It has two cameras, both a 24mm wide-angle camera like all of the smaller drones, as well as a 3x telephoto camera. The wide camera has a 1-inch image sensor, which is the same size as the Mini 5 Pro and has basically identical quality, and the 3x telecamera has a somewhat smaller sensor, but it still produces great footage. It's also got basically all the same bells and whistles as the Mini 5 Pro: D-Log-M, obstacle avoidance, active track, spotlight, point of interest, waypoints, slow motion, 4K at 120 frames per second, all the good stuff. And it's also significantly faster at 47 miles an hour versus 40 miles an hour on the Mini 5 Pro. And because of that, and the fact that it's larger and heavier, it has far better wind resistance, and the flight time is pretty similar to the Mini 5 Pro. Now, the main downside of the Air 3S is that it's larger and heavier, so it's not as easy to transport, and also you can't flip the camera to vertical for vertical videos. All in all, the Air 3S is currently one of my favorite drones, and it's what I'd recommend as the best value for the price if you're looking for a high quality camera drone to shoot video with. One of the main reasons I like the Air 3S over the Mini 5 Pro is the 3x telephoto camera. If you look at helicopter shots in movies and high-end productions, they're more often than not using a longer focal length to create more depth compression and parallax instead of using a wide-angle camera, and the 3x camera on this drone lets you create a similar effect, which really opens up the possibilities of the types of shots you can get. A longer focal length makes things in the background look a lot bigger compared to the foreground and makes it all look closer together, which makes the shots look more grand and epic. And the the longer focal length can also let you stay further from what you're filming and still get a nice close shot, for example shooting wildlife or following a car, and be less likely to crash or disturb the subject. All in all, the Mini 5 Pro and the Air 3S are the two main drones that I'd recommend for most people, and if you want to see a breakdown of all the differences between these two and who should get which drone, I'll link my Mini 5 Pro versus Air 3S comparison down in the description. Now moving on up from here, at the top end is the mighty Mavic 4 Pro, starting around $2,100. It's basically the best of the best you can get in a camera drone without going to the 15K plus Inspire drones. The Mavic 4 Pro has 3 cameras, a wide-angle camera, and 2.5 times and 6 times telecameras. It's got the best quality wide-angle camera out there with a much larger 4/3 sensor than any of the previous drones, and it shoots in 6K up to 60 frames per second, and also has the best quality telecameras that you can get your hands on. It also has all of DJI's bells and whistles, from 360 obstacle avoidance to active track waypoints, and even an adjustable aperture on the wide-angle camera. It's a fantastic drone, I love it, and I made an entire in-depth review on it if you want to learn more about it, but at $2,100, about twice the price of the Air 3S, it's a bit hard to justify the massive jump in price for a relatively small increase in quality, especially if it's your first drone. If you want to get the best of the best and don't care too much about price or size and weight, the Mavic 4 Pro is the drone to get, but for most people, the Air 3S is going to be a lot better value for your money. So those are my top recommendations for each price range and use case. Now, if you're in the US, as of the recording of this video, you actually can't get any of these drones from DJI's website. You can get some of them, mostly the cheaper ones, from Amazon, and the ones that simply aren't available here in the US, you can get on eBay shipped in from South Korea. It takes a few days, about a week, for them to get here, but I haven't had any issues with a couple of new DJI drones that I got that way. Obviously, be careful, do your own research, but I will put links in the description to these drones from eBay sellers that have been solid for me, as well as Amazon links to the ones that are available there. And yes, those are affiliate links. I get a cut, but it doesn't cost you anything, and I get a cut no matter where you get them from, which link you click, so I'm not particularly biased to one place or another. And another thing to keep in mind is that all of these drones fly the same. The Mavic 4 Pro is just as easy to fly as the Mini 4K, so there's no need to start with a cheap drone and then work your way up to a better model if you really want to end up with a higher end drone. You can go ahead and start with whichever one you want. The only downside is that if you start with a higher end one, you'll have more cash flying through the air ready to crash. Speaking of which, if you're getting your first drone or aren't super comfortable flying them, I'd recommend getting DJI Care crash insurance with your drone. Now, this isn't available in the US anymore, but if you're in any other country, it's highly recommended. You can purchase it for either 1 or 2 years. For example, for the Air 3S, it's an extra $109 for 1 year or $189 for 2 years. And with the 1-year plan, you get 2 $99 replacements if you crash and break the drone. And with the 2-year plan, you get 4 $99 replacements. And if you completely lose the drone and aren't able to get it back to send to DJI, you can get it replaced for $429 instead of the full price, once on the 1-year plan and twice on the 2-year plan. So it just gives you some extra peace of mind to know that if you mess up and crash and break something, what? I just crashed. You haven't lost your entire investment, and it'll help you to be less nervous when you're flying. And guys, whatever drone you get, if you don't know how to use it, you won't be getting amazing shots like what you see online. So as I mentioned, that's why I made a totally free 45-minute training showing how to get professional cinematic shots with your drone. Link to that is in the description. Go watch it or go bookmark it and come back and watch it once you've gotten your drone. You won't regret it. And at the beginning, I said I'd also talk about FPV drones. FPV drones are to get a totally different type of footage from regular camera drones, therefore flying low and fast around obstacles, through gaps, chasing things, diving cliffs, all that good stuff. Now, I wouldn't consider myself a world-class expert on FPV drones by any means. I just learned how to fly them a couple years ago. But if you're interested in getting these kinds of shots, the DJI Avata 2 is a great way to get started. It has all the fail-safes and nice features of DJI drones, and you can actually fly in full GPS mode through the goggles just like with a regular drone, but it also lets you learn the ropes of FPV. Now, some of the main differences from camera drones is that number one, it has a one-axis gimbal that only tilts up and down, and the footage is digitally stabilized in the drone, or you can stabilize it in post. And number two, it's designed to be always flying forward. You very rarely fly backwards or to the side with an FPV drone. It also has a way wider field of view camera than a regular camera drone, which helps give the immersive FPV effect. There's several different ways you can control the Avata 2. It comes with a little wand type controller where you basically point it where you want to go and pull the trigger. Some people really like it. I personally don't like it super well, probably partly because I'm much more used to flying a drone with sticks. And it also limits you as to how you can fly the drone. You can't, for example, dive down a cliff or a waterfall like all the FPV drone shots you see on YouTube and Instagram. And then you can also fly it with the FPV Remote Controller 3, which is available separately and lets you fly like a regular camera drone in normal and sport modes, but it also lets you fly it in full manual mode. If you've seen any cool FPV shots online, there's a 99.9% chance they were shot flying in manual mode. Now, learning to fly in manual mode is a much bigger learning curve than flying a regular camera drone. You need to practice in a simulator and then practice a whole lot in real life to get good at it. So it's really a whole other topic outside of this video. I have a separate video showing my first 2 weeks learning to fly in manual mode with the Avata 2. So if you want to check that out, it'll be linked down in the description. And I also have a video showing moving from the Avata 2 to a regular FPV drone. But the one big downside of flying the Avata 2 compared to traditional custom-built or ready-to-fly FPV drones is that, as with most drones, the altitude on the Avata 2 is limited to about 1,600 feet above the takeoff point. Most of the time, that's not a problem because you're only allowed to fly 400 feet above ground level anyway, but if you want to dive mountains, it becomes a huge issue because most mountains are over 1,600 feet tall, and the Avata just won't go any higher up the side of the mountain once it hits 1,600 feet elevation. So the Avata 2 is a great way to get into FPV drones, a huge amount of fun to fly. I've had so much fun with it. Love the Avatas, but it's definitely not a complete replacement for traditional FPV quads. So there you have my top recommendations for what drones to get in 2025. Again, links to all the drones will be down in the description. I've also got a bunch of videos on the channel showing how to get the best results with your drone and giving more info on some of the drones I've mentioned. You can click right here to watch one of those and subscribe to see more videos just like this.